This story was made for English learners just like you. Listen to one story every day and improve your English fast. If you want to feel free when speaking English and understand native speakers better, start now. After 1 month of daily listening, you will feel the difference. So, subscribe to the channel and don't miss new stories. Now let me tell you a story about a simple moment that changed everything. My name is Daniel, and one ordinary Thursday afternoon, I went to the local library in my town just to find a book to read for the weekend, and I wasn't looking for anything special. In fact, I was only there to get out of the house and maybe feel a little less bored. But what I found inside one old dusty book changed everything. I thought I knew about my life, my family, and who I really was. When I opened that book, a piece of paper fell out. It wasn't part of the pages. It was folded yellow with age and had a small red ribbon tied around it, and I almost ignored it. But then I opened it, and what I read inside made my hands shake. It was a letter, a real letter, and it was written by someone who had the same last name as me, someone I had never heard of, someone who wrote about a secret no one in my family ever told me. At first, I thought it was a joke, but soon I realized the letter was real, and I had to follow where it led me. This is the story of how one forgotten letter turned my quiet, simple life into a mystery I had to solve, and maybe something even more. Chapter 1. The Letter in the E. Library. I still remember the way the paper felt in my hands. It was soft and a little torn, like it had been there for many years, and the handwriting was beautiful, like something from another time, with small, careful letters that felt personal and real. The letter started with a name I didn't recognize, and it said, "Dear Michael, if you are reading this, then you are finally ready to know the truth." And at first I didn't understand, because my name was not Michael, but the last name at the bottom of the letter was the same as mine, and that made me stop breathing for a second. The letter talked about a house in the countryside and about a secret room that only one person in the family knew about, and it mentioned a small wooden box hidden under the floor, and inside the box there was something important, something that could not be forgotten. I read the letter 3 times, slowly, trying to understand who wrote it and why it was in that book. And the more I read, the more I felt like it was speaking to me, like it was meant to be found by me, not by accident, but for a reason. I looked around the library to see if anyone was watching me, but no one even noticed me sitting there, and I carefully folded the letter again and put it in my pocket. And suddenly my heart started beating faster, because I knew I had to find that house and see if the story in the letter was true. I didn't know where the house was, or who Michael was, or what the secret could be. But I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't forget about this letter, and I couldn't leave this mystery alone. Chapter 2. Searching for Michael. When I got home that evening, I sat on my bed with the letter in front of me, and I searched the name Michael together with my last name on the internet. But there were too many results, and most of them had nothing to do with me or my family, and still I couldn't stop trying. I called my grandfather and asked him if we ever had someone named Michael in the family, and at first he said no, but then he became quiet. And after a few seconds, he said there was a man named Michael who lived far away and who never came to family events. He said Michael was his cousin, but they hadn't spoken in many years. And no one really knew where he went. And I asked if he knew where Michael had lived before, and my grandfather said he remembered an old house in the countryside, but it was empty now and maybe even destroyed. He gave me the name of the village and the road, and told me it was a long way from town, but I could try to find it if I was curious. And I said yes. I think I will go there this weekend. And he just laughed and said, "Be careful, old houses can have old ghosts too." The next morning I packed a small bag with water snacks, my notebook, a flashlight, and of course, the letter. And I took the bus to the edge of town, and then another one toward the countryside. As the bus drove through the hills and fields, I kept thinking about the letter, and the wooden box and the hidden room. And I felt nervous, but also excited, like I was part of a story bigger than me, like something was calling me to find the truth. When I got off the bus, the road was quiet. There were no cars, and only trees and birds, and a few small houses, and I started walking toward the place my grandfather told me about with the letter safe in my pocket and a strange feeling in my heart. Chapter 3. The Old House After. Walking for about 30 minutes through small roads and quiet fields. I finally saw the house. It was standing alone behind some trees with broken windows and a roof that looked like it could fall at any moment, and the wood on the walls was gray and tired, like it had been waiting for someone for a long time. There was no gate, just an open path, and when I stepped closer, the leaves made soft sounds under my shoes, and for a second, I felt like maybe I should turn around and go home. But something deep inside me said, "No, keep going. You came all this way for a reason." The door was unlocked, and when I pushed it open, it made a loud sound like it hadn't moved in years, and the air inside was cold and full of dust, and I could see old furniture covered in white sheets, and the floor was full of leaves and pieces of glass. I slowly walked through the rooms with my flashlight in one hand and the letter in the other. I was looking for anything that could help me find the hidden room or the wooden box. And everything felt quiet, too quiet, like the house itself was holding its breath. I went to the back of the house and found a small room with no windows, and in that room there was a wooden floor that looked different from the rest, like it had been touched more than the others, and I kneeled down and knocked on the boards, and one of them sounded hollow. My heart was beating fast, and my hands were shaking as I pulled the loose board up, and under it there was a small empty space with a dusty wooden box inside, and I stared at it for a long time, not ready to open it because I didn't know what I would find. Then I took a deep breath and reached for it. Chapter 4. The Secret. Inside the box. The box was not heavy, but it felt important in my hands, like it was full of something that had been waiting for many years, and I sat down on the floor and slowly opened the lid while my fingers shook a little. Inside I saw old photographs, black and white pictures of people I didn't recognize. Some of them were smiling, and some were serious, and they all looked like they came from another time, a time I had never seen before. There was also a notebook. It was small with a brown leather cover, and when I opened it, I saw handwriting that looked like the same writing from the letter. And at the top of the first page, it said, "The truth must be remembered." I turned the pages carefully and read short notes. They talked about a boy named Michael and how he learned a family secret, something that made him leave the town and disappear because he was afraid someone would find out. There were words about money, about a hidden account in a bank, about someone who stole something from the family many years ago, and it seemed like Michael was trying to protect this secret by writing it all down in case someone from the family would find it one day. Then I found one last letter at the bottom of the box. It was inside an envelope, and it said, "For the one who finds this." And when I opened it, my heart stopped for a moment, because it started with "Dear Daniel," and that was my name. The letter said, "If you are reading this, then we are probably related, and I hope you understand now that this family has more history than anyone knows. And it ended with, "Please don't. Let the truth be forgotten." I didn't know what to feel. Happy, surprised, afraid, or maybe all of them together. And I sat there in that quiet old house, holding letters from a person I never met, but who knew I would come one day. Chapter 5. A Stranger. Knows my name. When I left the house, I was full of thoughts. My mind was running fast, and the wind felt cold on my face, and I looked around, and everything felt different, like I had stepped into a new life without even meaning to. I walked to the bus. Stop. But before I could get there, an old man called out to me from his garden. He said, "Hey, you came from the house, didn't you?" And I stopped because I didn't think anyone saw me go in. He walked closer and looked at me carefully and then said, "You must be Daniel," and I froze because I didn't know this man, and I never told anyone my name, and I asked, "How do you know me?" And he smiled and said, "I knew your grandfather, and he told me one day someone like you would come." He said that many years ago, Michael used to visit him and told him stories about the family secrets, and how one day he would leave everything behind. But he always hoped that someone brave would find the truth and keep it alive. I asked if he knew what the secret really was, and he said, "I only know part of it, but I do know this." Michael wasn't crazy. He was trying to protect something important, and maybe now it's your job to finish what he started. He reached into his pocket and gave me a small silver key and said, "This opens a locker in the city train station, and I don't know what's inside, but Michael gave it to me and told me to wait until the right person came looking, and now that person is you." Chapter 6. The Locker in the City. The next day I took the train to the city. It was a long ride, but I couldn't stop thinking about the silver key in my pocket and the words of the old man, and I kept asking myself what would be inside that locker, and why was I the one who had to find it. When I arrived at the station, I walked slowly along the long row of lockers. They were old and metal, and all looked the same, and I checked the number written on the small tag that was tied to the key. And then I found the locker near the end of the hallway. My hands were cold and shaking as I put the key inside and turned it. And when the door opened, I saw a black folder with papers inside and a small audio recorder wrapped in plastic, and I took them out carefully and sat down on a bench nearby. I opened the folder and saw documents with the family name. They were about land, about money, and about a legal fight between two brothers. One of them was Michael, and the other one was someone I had never heard of, and the papers showed how Michael gave up everything to protect someone else's name. There were letters from a lawyer and old receipts and copies of documents that showed how someone in the family had stolen land from others many years ago, and Michael tried to make it right, but no one believed him, and he left before anyone could stop him. I turned on the audio recorder, and there was only one file on it, and when I pressed play, I heard a deep voice, and I knew it was Michael, and he said, "If you are listening to this, then you found the letter and the house and the box, and now the truth belongs to you." He said, "I didn't want to carry this story forever, so I hid it, hoping someone strong enough would find it, and I believe that person is you, and now you can decide what to do with it. You can share it or keep it, but at least now you know who you really are." And then the voice ended, and I sat there in the middle of the busy station with the sounds of people walking past me, and for a moment I felt completely still, like the world was moving around me, but I was finally at peace. Epilogue. The letter that found me. After I returned home, I sat at my desk and looked at all the things I had found: the letter, the box, the photos, the documents, and the recorder, And I thought about how this all started with one small choice. Just walking into a library on a quiet afternoon, I never planned to find anything. I never thought I was special or that my family had any big secrets, but now I understood that sometimes life gives you pieces of a puzzle, and it's up to you to decide if you want to finish it or walk away. I never met Michael, and I probably never will, but I feel like I know him now. I understand why he disappeared, and I respect him for trying to protect something bigger than himself. And maybe that is what family really means, not just blood, but truth, courage, and memory. I didn't tell many people about what I found. I kept most of it to myself and shared only a small part with my grandfather, who cried when he saw the photos and said he wished he had talked to Michael one more time. But even if no one else knows the full story, I know, and that changed something in me forever. Because now I feel connected to my past and ready for my future, and all because of one forgotten letter inside one forgotten book. And maybe that's how real change begins, with a small thing that speaks to your heart and refuses to let you go until you become the person you were meant to be.